Did you feel kind of funky last week? Did it feel like Mercury was in retrograde with things not coming together, people acting cranky or wishy washy? Last week was the spring equinox. It was also Mercury retrograde, but we were and still are a little in liminal space. And today I'm going to talk about how to deal with being in between. So thanks for being here. I encourage you to stay through to the end because for most of you, this is going to be a perspective you probably haven't heard before. So let's talk about what is liminal space first so that we're all on the same page. Liminal means in between or not this or that. So physical spaces that are liminal are doorways. They're in between rooms. They're not in this room or that room, but in the space in between. The shoreline is liminal. It's neither land nor river or ocean. Dawn and dusk are liminal times. They're neither day nor night. Bridges are liminal spaces. They're neither here nor there. So being undefined can feel creepy. We want familiarity, solidity, definition, and these in between spaces aren't that. They feel off and incomplete. They leave us feeling that something is wrong or even dangerous. The reason why men carry their brides over the threshold when they get married is that doorways are dangerous places. They do this to symbolize that they will protect their wives from this day forward. There's lots of legends about crossroads being places to summon spirits or to make pacts with the devil. There are stories about leaving offerings at crossroads for the spirits who are stuck there. There are also stories about not whistling at crossroads at night because you will attract bad luck or negative spirits. There are warnings about standing in thresholds because it leaves you vulnerable to spirits. And I've done this a few times and it really does feel creepy. It shouldn't, but it does. And you may have heard about horseshoes being placed over doorways. This is because it's bad luck to say goodbye or stand in a doorway because it invites separation or bad luck. The horseshoe is a charm to break that spell. Did you know that? There's a feng shui rule about not facing our mirrors towards doors because they invite spirits into the house. So seeing your reflection in a mirror during the witching hour invites spirits to appear. I'm sure you've heard of that, right? When you're a little kid. And breaking a mirror is always bad luck, but breaking a mirror in a liminal space like a doorway or on the stairs is really unlucky. If you have a mirror at the end of a hallway, that's a portal to another dimension. Stairways are also liminal spaces. There is a superstition about not stopping midway up or down the stairs because it's bad luck. And I don't know if this is feng shui or just an old wives' tale, but spiral staircases are used to confuse spirits and keep them from moving freely around the house because they can only travel in straight lines. So going to a graveyard at dawn or dusk is risky, spooky, creepy, because you're far more likely to see a ghost then. So liminal spaces are seen as dangerous, creepy, uncomfortable. We don't like them. They don't seem normal because they're not this or that. It's like looking at very good AI, like a robot, an AI robot. They look good at mimicking the human face, but there's something not quite right about them that makes them seem weird or dangerous. And you may have felt this in the last week or so because the equinoxes and solstices are liminal times. They're times of transition. Maybe you got a message from the other world, even. So, liminal times are teenage years. We're not children, but we're not adults yet either. And this can cause a lot of confusion for us and our parents. Divorce is a liminal time. We're moving from coupled to uncoupled and have to learn how to do that again when we're older and have different things going on in our lives. Prolonged sickness is a liminal space. We're navigating how to be temporarily weaker or dependent. When we're changing careers, that's a liminal space, especially if we're moving to something totally new or in a different location. When we were in lockdown during COVID, that was a liminal space. Things weren't normal. We all wanted to get back to our routines. We wanted things to be predictable. Nobody could say how long this period would last, and it created a lot of depression, divorce, stress, and uncertainty. So now, here we are again with spring. It seems a good time to talk about this and normalize it because a lot of people avoid liminal spaces. They don't like change. They don't want change, and it's a necessary part of growth. And we could either learn to deal with it gracefully or fight it all the way. Either way, it happens anyway, so we might as well learn to dance with it, right? So my first suggestion for getting comfortable with liminal spaces is to understand that it's a part of life. There's no escaping it. The only way to live is to go through the process of being born. Transformation requires that we undergo a dramatic shift. It's a no turning back type of thing. And if you're a person who believes that marriage is a piece of paper, there's no transformation. If you believe marriage is a sacrament, it transforms you from a single person to a married person, from a solo act to a partner, a team member, and that will impact the whole rest of your life. The same is true of parenthood. Anyone can have a child, but to embody the role of parent is a transformation. These little people become part of your reason for being, your responsibility, your love, and it never goes away. They're a part of you that didn't exist before, and you can never go back to a life where you weren't a parent. It's not like changing your clothes. So moving through liminal experiences changes you. It grows you. It moves you along your evolutionary path as a person. And without that transformation, you're just kind of going through the motions. It's like all the 40-somethings who don't want to drive or leave their parents' basement. They're older, they're legally adults, but they never transitioned. We're meant to transition from this to that. The only way to do that is to go through liminal space of being something that cannot be defined. So my second suggestion is that while we are there in that undefined space, let go. Surrender to the process. The chrysalis doesn't have to try to become a butterfly. It just happens. It doesn't make it easier or faster to try. The process takes as long as it takes. It is what it is. All you have to do is flow and not resist. This is a great time to learn or practice mindfulness. If you're present through any process, things flow more easily. You learn more. You can mine treasures along the way that you won't see if you're flailing, worrying, trying to control, or crying your way through. There's nothing to panic about. It will end, and you will find your feet on the ground. Just chill. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Adolescence can be an angsty time. Grieving the loss of someone is not a cakewalk, but it ends, and life can be happy again, and it can even be better than before. I know that's hard to imagine because we can cling to what we know and think that that's the best that can ever happen to us, but that's rarely true. You know that. If you're mindful, right now is the best moment of your life. When my daughter was small, other mothers would ask me what was my favorite age. I guess some like having a newborn to cuddle and hold. Some like when they're starting to be mobile and talk and are discovering everything for the first time. My answer was always the same. It was the age that she was whenever they were asking me, because this was the first time that I was experiencing her in the way that she was. It was the first time that I was parenting a child of that age and ability. So it was always new and fascinating. And life can be like that regardless of what's happening if you engage in mindfulness. So my third suggestion is to lean into the fact that you can't go anywhere and nothing appears to be changing. COVID taught me that. I had absolutely no control over that. I couldn't make the problem go away, couldn't do a thing about the fear or the product shortages. I couldn't do anything but surrender. And when I finally began to lean into it, magic started to happen. I turned inward and started really looking at myself, who I was, what I wanted, what power did I have. I think I grew more in that period than maybe ever. And I embraced the notion of not having a fixed identity and not needing answers. So one of the things that I really encourage at Fantasia is being open and curious. What if are really great words, and being in liminal space is all about what if, because nothing is. It's all possibility. In reality, that's where we all live. Liminal space is our natural place. If you look at the double slit experiment, you will see what I mean. This is a famous physics experiment that showed how weird and wacky things are. It tried to answer whether electrons and photons were particles or waves. They aimed this light source at a barrier with two narrow slits. The photons and electrons would go through the slits and land on the other side. And if they behaved like tiny solid particles, they would travel in a straight line through one slit or the other and create two bands, one behind each slit. That's what they expected to see, but that's not what happened. When they shined the light, there was an interference pattern, as if the waves are overlapping and canceling each other out. And this suggested that each particle acts like a wave, going through both slits at the same time, interfering with itself. Bizarre, right? But that's not all. When the scientists placed a detector at the slit to see which slit each particle goes through, the interference pattern disappeared. The particles behave like solid objects. So the act of observing influences the outcome. Now, some scientists and philosophers believe that conscious observation is responsible for the wave function collapse. Take that a little further, and you get the idea that human thought or awareness influences physical reality. This is where we get the idea of law of attraction. What you believe, you achieve. I believe this too. This is why our community and podcasts are called Fantasia. We're all bastion in the never-ending story, creating our reality through our beliefs. A variation on the double slit experiment may also support this. It's the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment, which suggests that observing a quantum event in the present can seemingly affect its past state. Like, what? Yeah. This suggests that observation doesn't just determine the present, but it might retroactively shape the past reality. Now, this might sound crazy, but I do this every day with my clients. We don't literally change the past, but like if you're an only child, you're not going to wake up one day and have a sister. It doesn't work like that. But if you're bullied, were a loner, and didn't really like yourself growing up, your sense of reality could shift so dramatically that you see yourself as a strong, resourceful, solitary person who likes being alone, who can also socialize easily when you want to. And that's a different reality, right? You go from someone who felt that you had to do it all, nobody helped you or noticed how much you sacrificed, to seeing that you had a lot of support growing up and you were very well loved. How can that be? Because we all have a brain that pays selective attention to some details while ignoring others. It's easy to change the way that we feel and what we see so that we're more balanced and in harmony with our surroundings and ourselves. So same facts, but different inside. Another personal experience that makes me support the idea that our thoughts create reality is that I've been a card reader since forever. I grew up reading cards, and cards are like the double slit experiment. To me, that experiment is saying that the photons and electrons exist as potential. They can be either a particle or a wave, and I think that's true of everything. When I read the cards, I'm only seeing the most likely potential. I tell anyone I read for that this is not your future. It's not fate. This is the most likely path. It's like I'm in a helicopter looking down on the road below. I can see more than they can on the ground because I have a bird's eye view. So if I see a car passing on a curve, I could see that there's an oncoming car, but the driver below can't. So it's a no-brainer to say that a collision is forthcoming. And yet it's not an inevitability. It's only a probability. Either car could stop or slow down or do something to make that crash not happen. We all have that power every day by paying attention to our thoughts. If I listen to happy music all day, don't watch the news, and work in my garden after work, and you listen to bad news all day about war, the economy, racism, climate change, and sex trafficking, and then you come home and watch TV shows with violence in them, who do you think's happier? Who do you think is creating from a space of love and peace? Who do you think is creating strife and conflict? You see, it doesn't matter if you're engaging in cursing, fighting, or manipulation. If you're thinking about it, guarding against it, or complaining about it, you're still creating it because that's where your thoughts are. If you let people steal your peace, you'll be using your creative powers to expand that discontent. So boundaries are really important. So let's bring this back to liminal space. When we are in a space of in-between, nature wants to have us put our feet back on the ground to get rooted and grow again. That's the cycle of birth, growth, decline, death, conception, and rebirth, right? So the liminal space is a space of between death and conception. You're standing on a cliff. We jumped. That's death. That's the doorway. But we haven't landed on the other side yet. Conception hasn't happened yet. We're in midair. We're in a place of possibility, and we have to decide where to go. Momentum has us moving in the direction of landing in the unknown space in front of us, and that's where we're going to go if we don't make a mindful decision. Can you see what a juicy experience this is? Being here in a place of potential? It's rich, isn't it? You can be anything. You can go anywhere. You just have to decide. And when you are in the dark night of the soul, your life has been turned upside down by a death, an awakening, a near-death experience, a mushroom trip, something, and the foundation has been ripped away. You believe what you believe about yourself and life is not true. You don't know what's true, but it's not what you've been told. Can you see the strong desire to put your feet down, have a firm foundation beneath you, and feel safe and solid again? We do this. We crave walls and facts and known things. It gives us a sense of safety so we can go from one box to another like a hermit crab, going from one space to another. Nothing wrong with that. But what if we didn't? What if we didn't put our feet down and didn't grow roots and didn't create walls? What if we hung out in liminal space and just let ourselves be in a space of potential? I know. I opened with how creepy and dangerous liminal space is. So, how could I be suggesting that we stay here? But what if it's not true? What if it's just fear talking and liminal space is our true nature? The way I see it, we're on the wheel of life. We go around like the seasons. And if we have been growing the whole time, we get to the doorway of death, jump across the gap, land on the other side, and begin to spiral inward. So life is the same cycle, but it's a different lesson each time around. And if we don't grow, we stay on that outside ring and move in a circle instead of a spiral. It's the same stuff, different day. Same relationship, different partner, same drama, different details. But if we're spiraling inward, at some point, we're going to get to the center of the circle, right? So what's there? Do we just keep spiraling in infinitely smaller circles? Or do we spiral outward again, going in a different direction? Or do we stay at the center as potential? Imagine what it would be like to not be Democrat or Republican, male or female, neither black nor white, and be neither in a state of belonging nor ostracism. That's hard, isn't it? Humans like labels. We like knowing where we stand. We want to know who's a friend and who's a foe. We want to know if we're more beautiful or less beautiful than someone else, and if we're more financially comfortable or less. But what would it be like if all those labels went away? You see, I think we're limitless. And we start putting labels on things and building walls and boxes to feel safe, and we're creating our own cages. And what might it be if we allowed ourselves to be without limits and be in between this and that and embrace the idea that I am that, meaning I'm all of it? Is that too awesome? Or can you be all that? In the never ending story, Bastian starts out in liminal space. He's in a place of becoming. He thinks of himself as a dweeb. He's overweight, bullied, and friendless, but he's also the hero of Fantasia and doesn't even know it yet. When he rescues Fantasia from the nothing and gains the Arin, he understands that he can wish himself to be whatever he wants. So he wishes for strength and beauty at first. And at first it's strange, but he quickly acclimatizes to being handsome and strong and forgets what it was like to be timid and frail. He gains courage and leadership because he starts believing in himself. And that turns to arrogance and domination. And the more he gains, the more he's afraid of losing. And he ultimately ends up feeling isolated and empty. And all that started with a desire to be something rather than simply being. He created the box that became his prison. Now, we can learn something from Bastian, but we can also learn from the childlike empress. She was the ruler of Fantasia, yet she gave Bastian the means to destroy her kingdom and himself. She never stepped in and stopped him because she embodied love and trust. Her rule was non-interference, non-judgment, and no control. There's more I could say about that, but let yourself figure out the rest. So as we go into spring this year, think about that. The seed for what you are becoming this year has already happened. Conceptions happen. We're beginning to grow in whatever seed you've planted in the past. So blossom into that. But don't let yourself be contained by it. Grow wild and free. Take a chance. Release your labels. And if you're truly releasing your labels, you're not binding anyone else by them either. That's the way that you can check to see how you're doing. If I'm not going to condemn others for being less than perfect, I can't condemn myself either. I can't judge someone for being whatever your pet peeve is. I have to love that thing and embrace it as part of the all that is. So challenge yourself to really love what you can't love. I did this when I was doing my genealogy and discovered that I have some royalty in my family line. And these people were pretty ruthless, and I was disgusted by them. I didn't want to be associated with them. But that was a form of self-loathing, honestly. And I had to learn to accept all of it because I am that. The DNA and blood is part of what made me, and I can't turn my back on that. We all have darkness inside. That's the nature of our humanity. If we're ashamed of it and hide it, we can't be whole. The more I cling to the desire to be sweetness and light, the stronger the darkness becomes, because light and dark are two sides of the same coin. You can't fight darkness with light. That's like fighting with yourself. If I don't have a coin, they both go away. So, or a label. So neither one has claim on me, and I can just be. And you can give yourself the same freedom. And isn't that a much easier place to connect from? If you don't have to be black, white, male, female, young, old, fit, fat, or anything, you can be okay just as you are. Social distancing during COVID forced this liminal way of being on me. I haven't come back. And I've learned to like it out here in liminal space. The idea of building a box around me feels too confining. I realize that I don't feel safe, and I am safe. So if it feels right to you, try that on this season. Let yourself be label free. Allow people on the right and left to be okay. Gain peace by not desiring peace or judging what is not peaceful. So be in a space of acceptance. See if you like being potential without having to be anything in particular. And let me know your thoughts. Happy spring. And if you'd like to discuss this idea further, please join my private group. We talk about all sorts of nonsense and don't necessarily commit to any of it. And it's a great way to figure things out or not. So see you next week. Ciao.
Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Spotify so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, why not show your love with a review? Thanks. See you next week.